I had to do it. I just had to do it. The ambulance turned out not to be freedom for me. And so I had to find freedom for myself. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my next video. Well, this is a radical change for me. This Subaru Forester is my new home. Yes, I'm not exactly sure what I'll do with the ambulance. If you followed the channel for a while, you know I've been living in an ambulance, but I'll figure that out. But for the moment, this is my new home and my new permanent home. And so pretty radical change from a nice big ambulance down to a Subaru Forester. And so today I want to tell you the whys of why am I making this radical downsize in vehicles. Well, I drove a vehicle up the Alaska Highway this last year. I started in the middle of July. In the middle of July, I started a trip. It was about a 10,000-mile trip total. And so it was a lot of time. And I bought a little car, a little Scion XA, which is, if you know anything about Scions, this is you can almost pick it up and toss it around. It's a tiny little car. You can't, I'm kidding, but it's tiny. And in fact, you can see that car. A friend of mine owned it, took out all the seats, and made a home out of it. And I was super impressed with how comfortable he made that home. And you can go see that build, and I'll put a link right up here so you can go take a look at that build. But I still thought I could never live in it. That car came up for sale. And I lived all my life in Alaska, and I still have a son who lives in Alaska. Well, here's what I decided to do. I decided to buy this little Scion XA, very comfortable to live in for a month or two or three, and I drive it to Alaska and leave it. That is now my Alaska summer home, and I love it as a summer home. I was amazed how much I enjoyed living in that little car. And so my son had never driven the Alaska Highway, the Alcan, as we in Alaska call it. I said, hey, you want to fly down? I'll pick you up in Seattle and we'll drive the Alcan together since you've never done it. He said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And then we drove up through Canada into Alaska back to Anchorage, where he lives. I spent 3 months living in a car. And, you know, it was really surprising when I first got picked up the car. My first night was a little rough. You know, I had to get everything settled in and make room, and had to figure out how to go to the bathroom in a car. You know, going in the bathroom in a van really isn't a problem. But going to the bathroom in a car it's a whole nother ball game. So it wasn't really comfortable in the beginning. But after I got used to it, and then for 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks, there were two of us in this little teeny tiny car. He was a backpacker. He had brought all his backpacking gear because he was going backpacking. So we'd just pull over, find a place, and he'd set up his tent and he'd sleep outside in his tent because that's what he always did. He very comfortable with that, as I used to be. We drove the highway and then we got to his house, and I spent time with him and in his house, and it was my home base, and I drove all over Alaska. And I'm gonna have a long series of videos on that, so keep your eye out for those. I don't know when they'll come out, but man, that's beautiful country up there. If you've never been, you really need to think about going. I spent like almost 3 months in a car, and here's the funny thing. As soon as I started driving in that car, I drove for about a week before I got my son, and then I got him and we drove. My heart just was really happy. It was just, my heart sang being in that car. And in my older years, as I've matured and overcome a lot of my mental health issues, I have learned to follow my heart. I've learned to be able to hear my heart and understand what it's saying, and then actually to follow it. And so being in that car, as tiny as it was, and it had about this much ground clearance. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, no more than that much ground clearance. And I had a box in the back. I'll show you photos and videos of it on the trip up. Every time I went over any bump at all, the box in the back would grind, and I had to have the box in the back because there was no room in that tiny little car. And I put a solar panel on the roof, so I had solar. But my goodness, I can't tell you why, but I loved being in that car. And after a month, maybe a month and a half of being in that car, I knew I was going to move into a car. Couldn't be that car because that car was way too small. And I have been saying that all along. You know, the tiny cars are just not for me. I couldn't possibly do that. And the ground clearance, with about that much ground clearance, I could not live with that. I had to have good ground clearance. So I started thinking about what could I buy that would be comfortable off-road. You know, it's not going to ever be an off-road vehicle, but comfortable off-road. I can go off into some pretty squirrely places and maybe put some all-terrain tires on it. I'm going to put shields underneath. So when I thought about all that, I thought of the Subaru. It's all-wheel drive. It's fantastic in mud and snow and sand, as good as a car can be. Really advanced traction control systems in it. Can go places where almost no other car can. I watched YouTube videos, direct comparisons. The big one for me was the RAV4. I really considered a RAV4. I wanted a RAV4. Had I been able to find a RAV4 hybrid, I would have bought it. They're sold out. You're waiting months to get a RAV4 hybrid, and I just wasn't going to wait. That was the only car that I put above the Subaru, the Forester. I'm going to do a build. I'll take you along on the build. And the Subaru gets between 30 and 34 miles to the gallon on the highway. And the Scion got 32 miles to the gallon. The whole trip up, we got 32 miles to the gallon. Every so often, it go all the way down to 30. I mean, that was the low, 30. And it would go up to 33, maybe 34, but 32, that's what it got. And I've had this pretty consistently at 33 and 34, the Subaru Forester. And man, getting 34 miles to the gallon in a car with 8.6 inches of total ground clearance. I mean, that's fantastic in a car. There's in a lot of SUVs and trucks that won't give you that much. And so it's really good ground clearance. The all-wheel drive is fantastic. 34 miles to the gallon, and that's honest, right? I wrote down all the mileage on the whole trip. I'm gonna do a report on how much it costs to drive to Alaska, and I'll do a video on that. You know what it was? My heart loved the freedom, and I've given that up. I've worked so hard at building the YouTube channel and building Homes on Wheels Alliance, the nonprofit, that I've given up all my freedom. That is freedom to me. 34 miles to the gallon, can handle, most reasonable off-road conditions. That's freedom that I've given up. And as I drove just anywhere I wanted. I drove to Alaska. I thought about, well, maybe I'll drive up the Arctic Circle. I'll drive up on the Dalton Highway, or in Canada, you can drive your car right and put your front tires in the Arctic Ocean. It's the only place in North America where you can do that. And I thought, I'll do that. Conditions didn't allow it. It was very rainy, very rough, and I had to get home for other reasons, and I didn't allow it. But I could have gone just like that. Anywhere I wanted to go, anytime I wanted to go, 34 miles to the gallon, very capable car, I could have gone. And that's the freedom I've been missing. Now I've been working for a long time to scale back on all my other enormous number of commitments that I've made for myself. I'm really working to get rid of a bunch of those. When my heart sings, I just have to follow it. And so about this car, it's a 2025, brand new. They offer an extended warranty. I have a warranty on this out to 100,000 miles. And that was another reason why I wanted to get out of the ambulance. The ambulance is a Duramax diesel. I think that's as good a diesel as you can buy. Just before I left, I had problems with it. I put $5,000 into it and didn't improve it one little bit. It just stupid little problems. Every one of them was a sensor. I believe every single problem was a sensor that failed and that wouldn't run without these sensors working. That's the way that diesel was going to be the rest of my life. And I knew better than buy a diesel, but I got sucked into the diesel fever and bought that thing. And I don't want to be in a diesel for the rest of my life. I'm almost 70. I got a few months left before I'm 70. And so this is under brand new car warranty until I'm 80 years old. Man, that is a compelling, I don't have to pay for normal service. Now, normal maintenance is always on me. It doesn't cover that. Something breaks on this thing, by the time I'm 80 years old, they fix it. And man, that's freedom as well. I'm not being nickeled and dimed. Cars really nickel and dime you, and this isn't gonna, because I got that extended warranty, right? It's through Subaru. It's not a separate company. I call up the Subaru dealer. I tell him my VIN number. He says, you come in and we'll fix that. And boy, I like that. I had to do it. I just had to do it. I had the freedom to go and be and do. If I want to run across the country, 34 miles to the gallon isn't fantastic, but it's plenty good enough. That's why I wanted the RAV4 hybrid, because it got 40. And then you get the air conditioning whenever you want it as well. And I would have loved to have had that. Had the Anchorage Toyota dealer had a RAV4 sitting on the lot, I'd be pointing at it right now. but they didn't, and they weren't going to have one for months. And I bought the Subaru Forester, and I have loved it every bit. Now, all these new cars have tons of electronics. You know, it's got a screen, really big, fat screen. And I thought, I don't want any of that. I wish I could just rip it all out. And now that I've got it, I love it. I do. It connects to my phone. It's Bluetooth. My phone's Bluetooth. I get in the car. They talk to each other. Android Auto. I'm on Android, but they have an Apple Auto. It's just an app you download onto your phone. It's on the car already. They talk to each other. I pull up Audible books. There are all my Audible books. I tap on a book. It plays. If I want to turn it up or down, I do it right there with the knob for the radio. In so many, the Google Maps is through the phone into the car. I just speak into my phone and it comes up on the car, and I've got a little display on my dash. Next right turn, a quarter mile, turn right, Reardon Avenue. Man, I love that thing. And all of it's got amazing little features. I won't go into all of it. I could talk forever about the car. So I'm going to move into that car, and I'm going to do a whole separate video on the build because I couldn't combine them into one. This is going to be way too long as it is. Cut this baby down, folks. That's it. I am now contemplating either how I'm going to get rid of the ambulance. I don't think the ambulance will be in my life anymore. This will be my daily driver and my long distance traveling. Now, I have bought a trailer that goes along with it, and that's kind of a separate video. I won't go too deeply into that. I bought a Runaway. I've been dealing with Runaway for a long time. I'm a big fan of Runaway trailers, but they have one that's tall that I can stand up in. And I have bought one of those, and that's a whole other video. I won't go into it. I'm in Quartzsite for 4 months every year. You know, I'm usually moving around, or I'm thinking about going on to the LTVA. And so I'm going to park this little trailer there, and then that's my daily driver. And I'll have to move it, to stay legal. So 4 months out of the year, this is very, very comfortable because I have the trailer. And I bought this land. I'm actually standing on my own land. I own this. And I'll be here 2 or 3 months out of the year. That's when it's really comfortable. It's not hot. It's not cold. It's not raining. The bugs haven't really gotten bad yet. So 2 or 3 months out of the year here. So that's maybe 7 or 8 months. 4 months, I'm just in the car going anywhere in the country I want to go. And with the Scion in Alaska, I'm planning on spending at least every year, maybe every other year. Maybe I'll tell him, you come down one year and I'll go up the next year. And that's how we'll stay, connected as a father-son. And so at least every other year, I'll fly to Alaska. I have the Scion. I'll pick it up. That'll be my home in Alaska for however long I want to be there. And I love Alaska, so it'll be a while. And so I'll be in that car part of the year. And this car, I'll go to Montana, I'll go to Oregon, I'll go to Colorado, I'll go to Utah. I'll just travel around. I'll be free, absolutely, totally free. That's what this car is to me, freedom. So I'm really, really excited about it. I'm excited about the 34 miles to the gallon. I'm excited about no repair bills for the next 10 years. All normal maintenance, of course, falls on me. You don't ever get away from that. I'll pay the oil changes and the tires and the brakes. Now I just drove in 10 days. I drove 4,000 miles from Alaska to I'm in Arizona now, and so I averaged 400 miles for 10 days. And I love the car. I love how it drives, how it feels. It's, on the open road is fantastic. Driving it around town, it's fantastic. Far superior and very much more enjoyable than the ambulance. The ambulance turned out not to be freedom for me. And so I had to find freedom for myself. There were lots of other choices. I thought about a Toyota Tacoma. That's been my dream rig for a long time. But they're very expensive, much, much more than this was. And I'm not convinced on their reliability anymore. A lot of the Toyotas are not reliable. In fact, Toyota just told them over like 150,000 Toyota truck owners, you're getting a brand new engine because we sold you a crap engine, and they all failed. So Toyota isn't what it used to be, but I believe Subaru still is. They're incredibly safe. They're incredibly reliable and durable. And I got a 100,000-mile warranty at any rate. No car repairs for the next 100,000 miles, 10 years. I'll be 80 years old. What will I be doing when I'm 80? Will I be alive when I'm 80? Who knows? Will I be out driving like this when I'm 80. Who knows? There are people that are. Maybe I'll be one of them. I hope so. I'm planning on it, but you never know. So hope you got something out of this video. Hope that gave you some thoughts for yourself about your choices in nomadic life. And I will talk to you on the very next video. If you got anything out of this, like us on YouTube. Consider subscribing to the channel. Why not? Hit that thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it if you did. Tell your family and friends. And I'll see you on my very next video. See you then.